Orange Basketball Facebook page, and we're coming off a Syracuse loss. Big opportunity for the Orange before 31,000 plus at the Carrier Dome, the largest on-campus crowd in college basketball this season, kind of short by Syracuse Duke standards as of late, but still a big crowd. They saw a high-scoring game, weird in how the points piled up in this one, in a way, as we'll discuss here, but ultimately a Syracuse loss tonight. So the Orange lose not only a game and not only fall.
Just a sec.
Hi, Siri.
Syracuse was defeated by Duke. The final score was 97-88.
Thank you, Siri. I appreciate that. Don't you love it when your phone clicks on while you're trying to do a live chat? Thank you for participating, Siri, though. Let's ask Siri another question. You ready? Hey, Siri.
Sorry.
Who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Those in the know say that the Chiefs will defeat the 49ers by 1 point.
Oh, good pick. I think I'm going to put some money on that. Thank you, Siri. We'll come back to you if we need some more Syracuse basketball opinions. So the Orange fall to 13-9 and 5-4 in ACC play. This is one of three huge games on the Syracuse schedule in the month of February. Duke's always big for many reasons, of course. But it was particularly big in this time because Syracuse needs resume builders at this point. They need quad one wins. They need to impress the committee. While the committee looks at the whole body of work, right, they certainly put an emphasis on games like Duke. Florida State's coming up in a couple of weeks. Louisville's the other big one this month. So now Syracuse lost at home. So they've got an opportunity to pick up some big wins down the road here, but they've got to take care of business along the way. Syracuse actually gets a week off, and they really need to work on some things. Jim Boeheim was saying at his press conference a few times that he thinks Syracuse is getting better in some ways, but not good enough to beat Duke tonight. And look, it was a couple of things for Syracuse, and let's start with Vernon Carey Jr. Syracuse has had real trouble with big men all year long. Boeheim was saying at his press conference that, Mike Watkins at Penn State, Oklahoma State's big man, a couple of the big men that Syracuse has made look like an All-American throughout the season, have not followed that up. Vernon Carey Jr. is one of the best players in the country for a reason. He had 26 points, 17 rebounds in this game. I really loved watching Cassius Stanley play for Duke in this one. He had 15 points on the night. Trey Jones with 17 points. He goes 10 of 10 at the free throw line. And despite the fact that a lot of Duke players got into foul trouble, it's pretty incredible that you look at Stanley fouled out, Moore fouled out with about 4 minutes to go, Delorier fouled out, and Syracuse couldn't cash in enough of those free throws. Had Quincy Guerrier foul out. Dolzaj was in foul trouble for most of the second half. Look, a lot of people were frustrated with the officiating in this game. They were consistent, though. They called it on both ends, and I think ultimately when we look at the numbers here in a second, I think Duke ended up getting called for more fouls in this game. So if you want to say they were biased towards Duke, you can go ahead and do that. They were pretty even on both sides. For the Orange, Marek Dolzaj led the way with 22 points. That's a career high for him. He had 6 rebounds on the night. Joe Girard added 17, hit a couple from three-point range. Elijah Hughes ended up with 21 points, but he was 1 of 9 from three-point range, 6 of 19 overall, picked up 8 points at the free throw line, and really got shut out for most of the second half. Had 12 points at halftime, but got shut down for most of the second half by that Duke defense. Buddy Boeheim did not come around until late in the second half as well with a couple of threes. He ends up with 13 points on the night. Quincy Guerrier, as we mentioned, fouled out with 7 and 7. Now, when you look at the team stats from this one, high-scoring game, right? But Syracuse shot 38%. You shoot 38%, score 88 points, and lose. It must be to a team like Duke that shot 58%, 31 of 54 from the field. Neither team was good from three-point range. Duke was just 6 of 17, but Syracuse, which leans on the three a little bit more, 6 of 26 from the free throw line, because free throws matter. 29 of 33 for Duke. That's 88%, where Syracuse went 28 of 37. That's 76%. Just a few extra misses there. It piles up. The rebounding number was very interesting. Duke out-rebounds Syracuse 41 to 35. But if you look on the offensive rebounds, Syracuse dominated there. Dolzaj, Guerrier, even Barama were getting offensive rebounds. The guards were getting offensive rebounds. So on that end, Syracuse out-rebounds Duke 21 to 12. Overall, on the defensive side, though, and a lot of this was Vernon Carey, 29-14 edge for Duke there. So high-scoring game, not exactly, and I like that about Syracuse-Duke games. They all end up being high-scoring games, right? But this one was a little chippier, a lot of time at the free throw line, and they kind of had to build it up both ways there, and Syracuse loses this one in a big opportunity to pick up a big win, and you always want to beat Duke, but if they're going to beat Duke, it's going to have to be in the ACC tournament this year because that is the one and only game on the regular season schedule. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Oh, Brian's from Rochester. Dustin's checking in from Kentucky. Ed wants me to ask Surrey if Syracuse makes it to the tournament. Let's do that. Let's bring Surrey back here. Hi, Surrey. Hi.
Hello.
Is Syracuse going to make the NCAA tournament? She's thinking about it. Surrey, now you're getting shy on me? Hi, Surrey.
Go ahead.
Will Syracuse make the NCAA tournament?
One moment.
She's thinking. Still
I
thinking.
don't have schedule information for the next Syracuse game yet. They were defeated by Baylor in the round of 64 on the 21st of March, 2019.
Yeah, we got that. Thanks, though. Sorry, Ed. She doesn't have the answers on that one. Always fun to. She's going to have to become a regular part of the show now. I mean, that's just the thing. Ben says, can we all agree that Corey Alexander is a terrible announcer? We can. He was awful. And that stinks because Doug Sherman, who called the game, the play-by-play announcer, Syracuse native, Syracuse grad, solid play-by-play guy, Corey Alexander had a rough night on the ESPN broadcast. We definitely can all agree on that one. You guys are talking about the refs, the free throws. Matt saying credit to Duke for hitting their free throws and running Syracuse off the three-point line. Matt, that's a great point. Syracuse couldn't get the clean looks. We mentioned Eliza, 1 of 9. Buddy couldn't hit threes. I love the guts that Joe Girard showed. He hit a couple of big shots in this game. I don't think we gave Joe stats, did we? Let me jump back here for a moment. So Girard ended up with 17 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists. Good to see those assist numbers up for the Orange in this one. Only turned the ball over once. He shot 4 of 14, 3 of 10, but real gritty effort for him out there. I love the guts that he showed. He belonged on that court, loved being out there for that big game, but ultimately he, Buddy, and Elijah just did not hit enough threes in this one. Jeff says Syracuse's big holes. This has been the story all year for this team. You know, when you play just a decent big man, like a decent big man becomes a good big man. A good man becomes great. What happens when you face a great big man like Vernon Carey Jr.? He becomes elite, as we saw today. Could they have tacked on a few more fouls to him? Sure. But I'm not going to blame the officials on this one because it was even on both sides, and you got to make your free throws. Joe says it right here in the comments. Free throws matter, baby. That's exactly right, particularly in a game like this. El Paso, Texas checking in. Vegas. Dave, you going to make a Super Bowl bet while you're out there in Vegas, baby? There you go. Brendan saying if you break down the tape, Elijah had a really bad defensive game, gave up a lot of layups and dunks on his side of the zone. Boy, I'll tell you, I know you guys probably don't want me to compliment Duke too much, but Cassius Stanley, how fun is he? When that kid's in the open court, he's unstoppable. And Wendell Moore Jr. came back from Duke. He'd been out for about 8 games with an injury. He was defending Elijah Hughes at times, per your comment there. And it's interesting because the past few games, what we've seen is a pattern of Elijah has a big half, and then teams adjust to him defensively, and Buddy ends up having a great second half, or the other way around, right? Buddy will have a great first half, defenses adjust, and then Elijah has the great second half. But Elijah's struggling more and more to get those clean, open looks. He's really got to work for his shots, try and come off the screens, dribble up the court, and, you know, this is guys playing 40 minutes a game. Leads the ACC in minutes. Buddy's right up there. I mean, this is typical Syracuse. You get those 3 or 4 guys that play 40 minutes a game. Boeheim's bench, very short in this one. Howard Washington Jr., I know this drives my guy Ben Burrows nutty, who's behind the scenes for us, as always, at syracuse.com tonight, that when either, particularly Joe Girard, but when Girard struggles or, you know, Buddy just doesn't come out of the game, right? Bryson Goodine's not going to see the light of day in a game like this. But Howard Washington Jr. only got a cameo appearance in a game like this. And he's a guy that can facilitate the offense, can make it flow, can calm things down a little bit. I wasn't expecting him to play much, but that's for you, Ben. I know you hate that. What's up from Murfreesboro, Tennessee? Never heard of that one, Richard. Hope things are great down there. Jermaine, I've got the Chiefs. Jermaine asking for my Super Bowl pick. This one, I hope it's a great game. I think it's going to be a great game. Bull Ridge, Georgia. Another Georgia from Kevin. Flowery Branch, fantastic. I can't bet against Patrick Mahomes right now. I just can't do it. San Francisco, I think, is the best team top to bottom. And you look at their 3 losses this year, they were all close. They were all like, Robbie Gould missed a field goal in one game. I think another went to overtime. Really close losses. So they could be like a 15-1 team in this Super Bowl. But I like Kansas City. I like Patrick Mahomes, that Mahomes magic, 27-23. That's my Super Bowl pick. So take that information as you will for entertainment purposes only, of course. Brandon, I know it was sad, Ben. I see Ben's comment there. Just 4 minutes for Howard Washington Jr. out there tonight. Brandon says Marek has got to be fed like this more. Will bring more looks for the shooters. Defense has to box out. Richard saying win as a team, not as a 1-on-5, responding to Brian's comment up there above. Greg asking how far, there it is, how far do we have to go in the ACC tournament? You got to start thinking about that because, so now you lost to Duke. You got to tread water. You got to hold your own. You got a week off before Wake Forest. That's kind of a take care of business game. And just happen to have the schedule open right here. So let's go through it. So you got Wake Forest a week from tonight. NC State after that, and that game is losing its value. NC State was a team that was looking like it could be a quad 1 win. It's probably not going to end up being that, but still, here you have 3 games in a row at home for the Orange. Now they're spaced out a little bit because you go from Saturday to Saturday, then to Tuesday, but still 3 straight at home, then a huge game at Florida State, followed by a game at Louisville. That could decide your NCAA tournament fate right there. But per your question, Greg, if they, let's say tread water, hold their own against Wake Forest and NC State, and NC State's not going to be an easy game, but lose to Florida State and Louisville, now I think you have to win and go deep in the ACC tournament because following that, it's Georgia Tech, which does nothing for you. It's Pittsburgh, which does nothing for you. North Carolina, can you believe we're saying this? The North Carolina game, they lost to BC today, by the way. Cole Anthony is back for the Tar Heels, so by the time they come to the Dome on February 29th, they'll be playing a lot better, but that game is not – it's not going to matter anything in your on your resume, which is just amazing to think about. Then you finish at BC at Miami. So they might have to make a 2 or 3 game deep run in the ACC tournament. And Syracuse traditionally, since they've entered the ACC, has not been good in the ACC tournament. So that puts a lot of emphasis on the Florida State-Louisville games coming up. Matt saying, Brent, no love for Marek. He had a spectacular game. He's coming along nicely and will be the reason why Syracuse reaches the tournament. Good on you for calling me out on that, Matt. I'm just so used to it now. I'm just taking for granted how good he's been. But the thing with Marek is he's so much better offensively. And tonight, it wasn't the catch and shoot. He was going right in the lane. He was saying, okay, Vernon Carey Jr., I'm going to come in, and you know what? You're going to foul me. And Marek did get to the foul line 7 times, made 6 out of those 7, went 8 of 14 from the field. His confidence is there. He didn't have quite the stat-stuffing number elsewhere, just 2 assists on the night, 6 rebounds. Sidibe and Guerrier led the way with 7 rebounds. But, I am so used to Marek Dolezaj playing on such a higher level the last few games that I just kind of take it for granted. But to get 22 points, there was a stretch in this game where only Elijah Hughes and Marek Dolezaj were scoring. The rebounds, he had some offensive rebounds and putbacks. It's been great to see his development. It's been great to see him turn into the all-around player that Syracuse needs him to be. As a matter of fact, at the press conference, Jim Boeheim was citing the improvement that Quincy Guerrier needs to make is basically what Marek has done. And Quincy Guerrier played a lot of shorter players when he was in Canada. They saw the athletic talent. They saw the physicality. They saw the opportunity for him to develop into a great player, and I think he's going to be a great player. But I think Boeheim makes a fair point to say that he's only playing 6'3", 6'4" guys. Now when you're playing big dudes and you're getting 20 minutes, you're going to foul out of that game. So once Quincy learns some fakes, some pump fakes, how to handle himself, a little bit of a dribble, offensive confidence when, how to handle himself around the hoop. Rebounding, I think he's getting there. Offensively, he still needs to kind of up the skill level a little bit, but we've seen that with Marek. Once that light bulb came on, what a great all-around player he's been. There's my guy Rob saying Duke plays great defense and did tonight, forcing tough shots for guys like Hughes, Boeheim, and Girard who are able to make those shots. How does Syracuse gain from this experience? A year ago, Duke had a small rotation but great players. With more back, Duke played a very balanced game and could be the best team in the ACC. Very dangerous overall with how they use their extended depth. That's a great comment, as always, Rob. Ben saying Corey Alexander kept calling Hughes a senior. Does he know something we don't? I got to tell you, Ben, it's not just Corey Alexander. If I could bet on this, and you can pretty much bet on anything these days, Elijah Hughes not in a Syracuse uniform next year. I think he's moving on, and I think he'll get drafted. It's going to be in the second round at this point, but I do think he will get drafted. So you want to plan on Elijah Hughes not being a part of the team next year. But while we're talking about Marek Dolzaj and the interior play and how much Syracuse has struggled there, and I think you kind of knew they were going to against Vernon Carey Jr. Interesting visitor at the Dome tonight. Now, to be honest with you, Ben, you can help me out if you know this. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce this gentleman's name, but there was a transfer from Columbia. Patrick Tape, I believe is how you say his last name, from Columbia, 6'10 center who's looking to transfer, and he moved up his visit to Syracuse. So that would be a huge help for the Orange. I'll tell you, a little blast from the not-so-distant past. Do you know who had two great games against Duke last year? Pascal Chukwu. Pascal Chukwu played great against Duke twice last year. And I think one of those games Zion Williamson wasn't playing in, to be fair. But there's just games you need that big guy and you need that presence, and Syracuse doesn't have it. When you're playing a guy like Vernon Carey Jr., you just need a big dude in there, if anything, just to use your 5 fouls smartly, and they just did not have it in this game tonight. So as we brought up the schedule, as we have flipped the calendar to February, it's Super Bowl Sunday. We're getting down to nitty-gritty time here. And now you start doing the math. You start trying to figure out how Syracuse is going to make the tournament, what they have to do. We just kind of went over it of what's ahead of them here in February. But tonight was just the second-ranked team that Syracuse had played this season. They're going to get a couple more down the stretch here with Florida State and Louisville coming. But so now Syracuse is 13-9. They're 6-5. I've got the ACC standings ahead of me that have to update. But, Virginia's still right there with Syracuse with 6 wins. So Louisville, Florida State, Duke, they're the top 3. Of course, they're making the tournament. They're the elite in the ACC. Virginia's hanging in there at 14-6. They're 6-4. I think they're going to get the benefit of the doubt, being the defending national champions. And as long as they don't just fall off the map, pick up a couple big wins down the stretch, I think they're in. That's 4. So now you're talking about Syracuse and Virginia. Syracuse and Virginia Tech, who coming into this game, Syracuse was 6-4. They're now 6-5. Virginia Tech 5-6. We mentioned Boston College beat North Carolina today, but they're 11-11 overall. NC State's fallen behind. They're 14-8, but they're 5-6 in league play, and that's pretty much the cutoff. Like 4, maybe 5. That's what Syracuse is scratching for, that 5th potential spot in the ACC. Had they won tonight, they're on the bubble. They go from the bubble of the bubble to the bubble, and I think they start making a lot more projections for the tournament. But they didn't win tonight, so they haven't picked up that big quality quad 1 win that they need to add to the slate. So they got to keep scratching, fighting, and clawing and hope between Florida State and Louisville. I think they got to win both of those, to be honest with you. I think of that Duke, Florida State, Louisville run. They needed 2 out of 3, and now they need 2. Jim mentions Virginia's win over Florida State. I think Virginia's going to be there at the end. I think they're going to put it together. It's interesting because both Virginia and Syracuse, there's a real disparity. Virginia is one of the best defensive teams in the country, but their offense is putrid. Syracuse's offensive efficiency is top 20 in the country, but as we saw tonight, couldn't make enough stops. Duke scores 97 points. The flow through the paint, the defensive issues that Syracuse is having, I believe their defensive efficiency is now in the 130s, and it's not improving at the rate that you need it to, certainly to make enough stops and win games like this. You got to outscore people. And when you go 6 of 26 from three-point range, don't make your free throws, shoot 38% overall, you're going to lose a game like this, even scoring 88 points. It's rare that Syracuse would score 88 points and lose, but, yeah, certainly Duke, Louisville's another team like that, Florida State. All those teams are athletic. They score. They go up and down the court, and they're all going to be challenging games for Syracuse. Great crowd, loud crowd. They were into it. the social event of the winter in Central New York, that Duke game, not a record crowd as we mentioned, but they were great and into it the whole way and tried to make a difference. It was a chippy, ugly game at times, for 97-88 because of all the whistles that were blowing out there. But good job by the crowd out there tonight. You always get that crowd at these Duke games, a couple big home games a year. North Carolina was supposed to be the other one, but they ended up being trash this year. So at least you got to see Cole Anthony play. He's really good. Coming up end of the month, leap year day, February 29th for that Carolina game. So in a normal ACC year, that would be 3 chances left to pick up a big, meaty quad 1 win. But now they only have 2 because Carolina just not as good this year. Mike saying Syracuse is 0-4 versus the top net 50, and only 3 ACC teams are in the net 50. We're in trouble. Mike, that is a fair point. That's why I was saying the emphasis on those 3 games and the net ranking. It gives you kind of a clear path of where you have to go. It's not the entirety of what the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee uses, but it's the clearest path to show you here's how you get to the tournament. And Syracuse is not walking that path right now. Brian asking if Syracuse won recruits tonight. There's a lot of recruits in the building. Football recruits. Dino Babers picked up 2 quarterbacks last week. One of his former quarterbacks, Jimmy Garoppolo, in the Super Bowl for San Francisco tomorrow. So football recruits, a few basketball recruits, a couple 5-stars in the house. We mentioned the Columbia transfer that's there. So hopefully that paid off for sure, Brian, because they really need it. Ben saying Pitt on the road is close to being a quad 1. I believe it is, Ben. Last I looked at the net rankings, that's pretty close. So that matchup is going to be on the 26th. So once they get there, we're still 25 days away. We'll see if that's a quad 1 win. That all of a sudden becomes a huge matchup if they can pick that one up. But right now it's kind of on the borderline. Syracuse beat Pitt on the 25th, of course, 69-61. All right, guys, tell you what do you say we wrap up there for the evening? And I'm going to go write my recap. Hope you can read that on syracuse.com bright and early tomorrow. All of our great coverage from Mike Waters, Donna Datota, and Dennis Nett, ace photographer Chris Carlson. Had the whole crew there tonight, so lots of coverage coming your way on syracuse.com. Let me remind you, if you can't be here live for this chat, 2 places you can find it afterwards. We put it on YouTube, so subscribe to Syracuse Orange Sports on YouTube, and we also make a podcast out of this. So if you are on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts, find syracuse.com podcasts, and you'll get my game recaps, this game recap here in podcast form. You'll get the Syracuse Sports Podcast. Jay Billis was my guest this week. Had a great conversation with Jay about Syracuse college basketball, name, image, and likeness rights, NCAA. Jay was great. I mean, Jay's always great, but he was particularly great in this one on a few issues that we brought up. So you get lots of podcasts at the syracuse.com podcast feed, including this game recap here. So we're going to be back live not till next Saturday because the Orange get a rare week off here in the heart of ACC play. They do not tip it up again until Wake Forest visits the Dome next week, 1 week from tonight on Saturday, February the 8th. That also at 8 p.m. tip time like tonight was. Thanks to Krause Health. Thanks to my guy Ben behind the scenes. Thanks to you watching wherever you are. And we're checking in from today. And we have one more person to thank. Okay, here she is right here. You ready? Siri? Siri?
Hello.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There you go. There's my girl, Siri. You guys have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl. We'll talk to you next week.